All right, poop shoot. I am back with 5 more things, count them, 5 that I've completed recently. And this is the final of my game jerseys for high school football. This was my grade 12 jersey. I finally got the number I wanted the most, 34. And this was the first shirt that actually had the last name on the back as well. So this is easily my favorite football jersey. And I didn't play in grade 13 because in my 4 years, I'd only started about half the time, and I didn't think I was going to play that much in grade 13 if I still played. And it was, high school football is a big time commitment. It's every fucking day after class for like 2 hours. And, I get it. If you're not going to play, whatever, it's part of the team or whatever. But I just had enough. I put in my 4 years. I was like, I'm not going to put in another year, my last year of high school, my most important year of high school, if I'm not even going to play, right? Plus, I had a girlfriend at the time that I started dating in grade 12 that I was banging the Christ out of. So I had other things. I had better things to do. Glad I played for those 4 years, but also not. I don't regret the fact that I didn't play in grade 13 either. So everything went just well. But saved the best jersey for my last year. So this is the one. Anyways. And I said game day jerseys. There may still be some more high school football jerseys coming in the next number of videos, but these are the game jerseys. So, first up for this sesh, a book, Star Wars, The Princess and the Scoundrel. So this story picks up like literally right after the defeat of the Empire and the death of the Emperor and the Death Star and Darth Vader. And so the rebels are all partying on Endor with the Ewoks, and Han, he's still kind of getting over the fact that he missed a whole year of his life and missed all that action leading up to the end of the Empire. And he's still suffering side effects from being in the carbonite, the whole psychological side of it, that sense of entrapment and being encased and trapped sort of thing. And Leia, on the other hand, after hearing from Luke that Darth Vader was their father, is struggling with her own internal demons, like because Luke is pressuring her to open herself to the Force and being trained by her or by him, and she doesn't want to end up like Darth Vader and become evil and whatever. So she's got this kind of internal struggle about. She's curious about the Force, but at the same time, she doesn't want to open herself up to it in fear of falling to the dark side and being anything like her father. And so she's got a lot of internal strife going on there. But Han realizes, I can't, the whole reason I've stuck around is for Leia. So he's like, he comes to the decision that I can't let her go. I got to ask her to marry me. So he ends up asking her to marry him not long into the celebrations on that night, and she says yes. So a celebration is planned that the Ewoks kind of all work on, and the two of them get married. And Mon Mothma, the rebel leader, spins a honeymoon idea. So there's a ship called the Halcyon, which I believe was brought into service in the war during the fight against the Empire, but is now being converted back to its original purpose, which is a starliner for a cruise ship for people to visit a bunch of different worlds on a cruise itinerary, right? So she's like, and it's also based in Chandrilla, which is Mon Mothma's home planet. And she's like, it would be really good publicity for the burgeoning New Republic to see two of the most recognizable rebel heroes worry-free on a cruise, chilling out. Empire's gone and dead. Everybody can relax. You can all join in the celebration and look forward to this time of peace that this new republic is going to bring you. She's like, it's a perfect PR opportunity, and you two can just relax on this cruise and have a honeymoon, right? So Han's reluctant at first, but Leia senses the opportunity in it, and so off they go. Now, before they go, Leia sends some notes to some worlds that aren't aligned with the New Republic yet that she really wants to bring on board. And one of these worlds is named Madurs, something like that. They have a very rich deposit of cranium or something like that, some sort of energy source It's a ice world, so they have this real heavy store of carnium in the planet core. Now, of course, Leia's not like after it like the Empire was, but she wants to bring this world into the New Republic and all, like make a deal with them and make sure they're protected and they can take advantage of this power source and everything's mutual, with the New Republic sort of thing. But the only problem is this world is not on the crew stop itinerary, but there is a stop close to it. So Leia's like, maybe I can work in some sort of side trip to this planet to speak to the prime minister there, yada yada, who was one of the people she sends a message to before the cruise. So the two of them get on the cruise, and it's funny because they some people treat them like royalty, like, oh, you wasted the Empire. Are they really gone? This is amazing. And then there's a lot of Empire sympathizers on the ship that don't like them one bit, right? And then there's rich people who don't really care who's in power as long as they keep getting their money and are left alone to enjoy their pampered lifestyle, right? So the whole mix of people on this cruise and how they view Han and Leia. But as fate always follows the Solos and the Skywalkers, all sorts of hijinks happen on the Halcyon, and Han and Leia are able to spin things to redirect the ship from one world, Sinjax, I think it is, to this Madur's place, and the captain sees the sense in their idea and kind of how they spin some. There's some truth in it, but there's also a bit of stretching the truth to get him to redirect. So eventually they do make it to Madur's, and Leia meets with the prime minister, but they see he's really standoffish. He's not giving them any information. He's really kind of almost being a prick in a way. But as things unfold on the surface of the planet, as Han and Leia with all the other cruise passengers are shown the different attractions on the world, they soon learn that there's actually an Imperial drilling rig on the moon, and it's drilling the carnium as we speak. But it's being there's no real Imperial presence to be seen. Everybody's on this station that's doing the drilling, but they're being monitored. So the prime minister, he wants to help. He wants to give Han and Leia the truth, and he's kind of dropping these hints along the way as to what's going on, but he can't come out and say it, or else he'll be punished, whatever. So Han and Leia eventually figure out what's going on, and they investigate this drilling rig and realize, oh shit, there's a whole Imperial presence still on this thing. Like we thought it was shut down. They told us it was shot out of the sky. We thought everybody on it would be dead, sort of thing. So, but no, there's a full-fledged Imperial operation still going on this planet. So eventually, of course, Han and Leia spearhead an operation to disable this rig and save the planet, because the drilling that they've been doing, as the Empire does, they just go in, get what they want, and fuck whatever happens to the planet and the people on it, right? They don't care. So the drilling has caused the planet to become unstable. So Han and Leia and the people of Madur's that help them out have to take the fight to this drilling rig, and they also come up with a last-ditch plan to hopefully save the world and not see it explode into a billion pieces like Alderaan did, right? So really good book. Action-packed, but also a bit of a love story, like exploring Han and Leia's relationship and whatnot a little deeper, and also some internal strife, with Han's feelings on his entrapment, like I said, in the carbonite, and how he's still getting over that trauma, and also most importantly, Leia's struggle with her parental lineage, sort of thing. So really good story. Flew through it in no time. And, I'm really starting to struggle with Disney's, the direction they've taken Star Wars in. This was a good book because, like, I don't know if you can see it, but the middle section of my bookcase is all Star Wars books. The majority of them came before Disney took over. And it fleshed out a really rich tapestry of events and timelines that happened after Return of the Jedi. And a lot of the books take place, prequels during the whole original trilogy, all over the place. But a lot of them take place after Jedi, when they kept the series going. So everything that happened in the Force Awakens trilogy is totally not my version of what happens in Star Wars. What happens in Star Wars is what began in the Heir to the Empire trilogy with Grand Admiral Thrawn after the Empire was defeated, and everything that came after. So I've been watching more videos online about how, especially with some of the TV shows, like I've heard the Acolyte trailer got panned because Disney and their president Bob Iger are really pushing this woke agenda in their productions now. And I've especially noticed this in the new book series, The High Republic. I've reviewed a number of the High Republic books, and I've mentioned this before, how everything's so, we got the whole transgender thing and the whole whatever, like it's they, them, zip, zorp, all this stuff going on, and they're working it into these books, and it's like, now they're starting to push this agenda in fucking Star Wars. Like, it seems just criminal, right? Like the best story ever told, and now fucking Disney is putting all this crap into it. I don't want any political bullshit nonsense agenda introduced in this world, because it is one of the most pure things I have in my life that since growing up as a kid watching those movies. Star Wars is just, it takes you away from our reality. It transports you to not just one world, but hundreds of worlds where anything can happen. And there's all these interesting creatures and people and machines and vehicles and space stations. And there's none of that bullshit in there. People just, there's all sorts of different people in this universe. There's aliens and all that have a billion different arms and have different colored skin, and nobody had a problem with it. Everything was cool in this universe, and it was so pure and so amazing. And now you see this fucking agenda creeping in. I'm not sure if I'm going to buy any more High Republic books, to be honest. I'm going to concentrate on some of my Aliens and Firefly books and some Star Wars books that take place outside the High Republic, because I've gotten sick of it. And now that I'm watching other people complain about it, it's like this seems to be becoming a more widespread problem in the Star Wars universe now that Disney has taken it over, and they're starting to push their agenda, right? So, but this book in particular didn't have any of that bullshit in it, and it seems like this story could actually fit in timeline wise with all what I consider true Star Wars books, the original books that came out after Jedi and stuff, not the new Disney bullshit. So this book is actually really good and kind of fits, my version of what came next in Star Wars, sort of thing. So anyways, don't get me started. Next up, more Star Wars, the Ahsoka TV show, season 1. This came out in 2023. Season 1, 8 episodes, and of course focuses on Ahsoka. The main character in this film, Ahsoka, was introduced in the feature film that kicked off the Clone Wars TV show that came out number of years ago. It actually came out, I remember, because when James was just born, my wife took the first 9 months of maternity leave, and then I took the last 3 months. So this is about 16 years ago then, 15, 16 years ago. Yeah, probably 15 years ago. And I remember the last few weeks that I had him of my 3 months off, his daycare called and said, we got a spot open. Like, would you like to bring him in a couple days a week just to get him kind of adjusted to being at daycare once he's here every day, right? Sort of thing. So we were like, yeah, that'd be great. So I remember, like, here I was off and nothing to do. And that Clone Wars TV series was kicked off by a feature-length film. So it was in theaters at that time, and I'm like, I dropped him off at daycare, and then I went home and had breakfast, whatever, and I'm like, I'm going to go watch that new Star Wars movie, right? So that Star Wars movie that kicked off Clone Wars was where Ahsoka was introduced. So she was kind of forced on Anakin as his apprentice. And of course, he was a little reluctant at first, but eventually the two came to really love each other, and Ahsoka was a big player in that Clone Wars TV show, and she had ended up through that TV show becoming one of my favorite Star Wars characters of all time. So when I heard, there was going to be an Ahsoka TV show, I was like, fucking yeah. And she did make an appearance for a couple episodes, I think it was, in season 2 of The Mandalorian, I think it was. So we got to see kind of a preview of her. And Rosario Dawson is the actress that plays her. And it was awesome. But now we've got the full-fledged Ahsoka TV show, and it was awesome. A couple little things I didn't quite like about it, but they are minor and I can get over them. But basically the story is two Sith, Baylan Skoll, who used to be a Jedi, he's a fallen Jedi, and his apprentice Shin are in the process of freeing a Night Sister from New Republic captivity. Her name is Morgan Elsbeth, and she used to be some sort of service to Grand Admiral Thrawn, one of the last remaining Imperial warlords. So they want to free her because they want to get Thrawn. They want to get to Thrawn. Now, what happened to Thrawn is this TV series ties directly into the Star Wars Rebels animated show from a number of years back. Came after Clone Wars, which features Hera Syndulla, Zeb, Kanan Jarrus, Ezra Bridger, Sabine Wren, and then the droid Chopper, as they kind of fought against the Empire in those early days. So, where was I going with all that? Yeah, so at the end of Star Wars Rebels, and Grand Admiral Thrawn comes into play in that animated series. And at the end of that series, Grand Admiral Thrawn and Ezra Bridger disappear in some star whales, go to hyperspace. Nobody knows what happened to them, sort of thing. So this series, what Baylan Skoll and his apprentice Shin are trying to free Morgan Elsbeth for is to try and they want to get access Thrawn. He's been sent into exile. They don't know where he's gone, but they want her to help them get to him because he's the last chance for the Empire to rally from being defeated and whatnot. So this takes place after Jedi, of course. And so Ahsoka, in the meantime, after she was the one that brought Morgan Elsbeth into captivity, and after some substantial questioning of Morgan, is able to find this little steel orb thing that has some sort of weird power to it, that is actually a star map to where Grand Admiral Thrawn, what world he was taken to. So, but the only problem is she can't unlock it. So Hera gives her some guidance, and she's like, I think Sabine might be able to help you unlock that. So Ahsoka then flies to Lothal, which is the Ezra Bridger's homeworld and one of the, pretty much the main planet in the Star Wars Rebels animated series, to try and get back in touch with Sabine, who Ahsoka actually took on as her apprentice because Sabine apparently had some Force sensitivity. So we get to see Lothal in live action glory, and then of course we get to see, as the series unfolds, a lot of the Rebels crew in live action version. So spoiler alert, we get to see Hera, Sabine, and Chopper. We don't get to see Kanan, obviously, because he's dead. We don't get to see Zeb. He's off training somebody for something. And we get to see Ezra. So we get to see, and Chopper. So we get to see 4 of the 6 Rebels from Star Wars Rebels in live action version. So Ahsoka gets to Lothal. She meets up with Sabine. Sabine is actually able to unlock the star map and whatever, but before they can do anything with it, Baylan Skoll's apprentice Shin, she descends on Sabine. They have a duel. Sabine is almost killed, and Shin makes off with the star map. So the rest of the series is like Baylan and Shin and Morgan setting up this journey with the star map to get to Thrawn, with all the while Ahsoka and Sabine and Hera doing their best to follow and keep track of these guys, and eventually hopefully get to Thrawn as well, because their hope is that if they find Grand Admiral Thrawn, they can also find Ezra Bridger. Now, in the meantime, they've let Mon Mothma know that the threat of Grand Admiral Thrawn's return to the galaxy is very imminent. We know his location, blah blah blah. And but meanwhile, the New Republic Senate is not taking the threat seriously, and Hera breaks some rules to try and help Ahsoka and Sabine go after Thrawn, and so she's going to be court-martialed and stripped of her general's rank, because there's some prick senators that are working against her for some reason. They don't believe the threat of Thrawn is real. So the rest of the series is just this chase as they head to this planet, which is called, starts with a P, I can't remember it. But they do get there, and Thrawn is there, Ezra is there, and Ahsoka and her allies can't stop Thrawn from heading back to their galaxy. And they're kind of, at the end of the series, Thrawn and his troops and his allies go back to the galaxy, and they're heading to Dathomir, the home of the Night Sisters. Ahsoka is able to kill Morgan Elsbeth, but there's some other Night Sisters working with Thrawn that are guiding him to Dathomir. And meanwhile, Ezra was able to sneak onto the ship, so he's able to bring intel back to Hera and Mon and whatnot about Thrawn's return. But all the rest of them, Ahsoka, Sabine, and Balin and his apprentice Shin, they're all still trapped on this planet where Thrawn was holed up for so long, and that's kind of where the season ends, on this bit of a cliffhanger. Like, Thrawn's back, what the hell's going to happen? And these guys are stranded. How the hell are they going to get back to the galaxy, right? So that's where the season ends. So I love this season of Ahsoka. Like I said, she's one of my favorite Star Wars characters of all time. And that's pretty rare, because somebody that gets introduced in like an animated show, they don't usually end up becoming like one of your favorite characters, right? Usually it's key characters from the movies, the big movies, that end up. But I think because Anakin / Darth Vader is my favorite character of all time, not only in Star Wars but anything, that her link to him and how close they were in their relationship and their exchanges, she became, like, she meant a lot to me watching that TV show, because I love Anakin so much, and I think about his plight so much, that she was obviously a big part of that, and I think because of that, she just became that much cooler to me, right? So to see an Ahsoka TV show come to fruition with a second season on the way was amazing. To see the live action versions of the Rebels, most of them, Chopper, hilarious, you know, his cantankerous droid, you know, persona is perfect. To see Grand Admiral Thrawn in live action form with his giant Star Destroyer, the Chimera. To see the Night Sisters in live action format, because I've read so many books and played so many games that feature Night Sisters. To see them brought to life on the live action screen was amazing. There were so many neat things about this series that I just loved the shit out of the first season. But the two things I didn't like, and I've seen some people post videos about not liking this as well, is that early in the series, when Ahsoka takes Sabine back on as her apprentice, Sabine's really struggling with the Force, and she can't even move like a teacup across the table in their starship. She's like, and the thing's not moving. But 8 episodes in, at the end of it, she's suddenly Force throwing Ezra across this big gap to get onto Thrawn's Star Destroyer, right? So the fact that she evolved so quickly into being able to use the Force, like, maybe she had an epiphany or whatever, but it seemed really quick. You know, when even Luke Skywalker, it took him extensive training on Dagobah with Yoda, and that sort of, you know, that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Not a deal breaker or anything, but it kind of cheapened the Force to me a little bit. And the other thing is, which is very closely related to that, is the lightsabers. And I've been noticing this in a lot of different things now, is that people seem to not be automatically dead when they take a lightsaber blow. Whereas, like, in the movies and stuff, like, you get holed by a lightsaber, you're fucking dead. Like, you just had a Force energy beam go through you, or chop off your limbs or head or whatever. Like, you're not coming back from that. You know what I mean? But it seems like lightsabers are having a harder time killing people. Like, they eventually get the job done, but it takes a number of hits or people get up, you know? So that was the other thing that kind of has been rubbing me the wrong way about Disney's kind of Star Wars. They're really starting to mess with the format, and I don't like it. I don't like it. George, you never should have sold the fucking company to Disney. I'm sorry. But that being said, I can look past those things, because this series, this season of Ahsoka was just so good, so entertaining. like I said, other people might not like it as much. I think The Mandalorian is everybody's um, pretty much hands down favorite of Disney's Star Wars TV series lately. But for me, the Ahsoka character, and she's even has like some Force vision training with Anakin. Hayden Christensen comes back to be, Anakin Skywalker, and from that time when they were training together, right? So this series had everything for me. Everything about it I loved. So other people might not, people who didn't watch Star Wars Rebels, people who don't like Ahsoka as much as I do, they may think, oh, it's a good series, but it's not great. But to me, it was awesome. So despite those two little things, it was still just absolutely amazing. I'm throwing down the wrong thing. All right. Next up, a movie that we went to see in the theaters as a kind of post-Easter thing with my dad, Ghostbusters: Frozen Empire. So this movie takes place 3 years, I believe, after the events of the previous new Ghostbusters film. Callie, I think her name is. Is it Callie? Yeah, Egon's daughter, Callie, her boyfriend Gary, who's played by Paul Rudd, and then Callie's two kids, Trevor and Phoebe. They have moved to New York from wherever Egon's farmhouse was in Oklahoma or wherever the hell it was. And they have taken over the original Ghostbusters firehouse operation, and they are continuing the tradition of busting ghosts. The containment unit in the firehouse, though, is getting close to bursting, and it's having some struggles. That's apparent. Now, Ray Stantz, played by Dan Aykroyd, reprising his role, and Ernie Hudson playing Winston Zedmore reprises his role, and Annie Potts reprises her Janine role, and Bill Murray comes back as Venkman as well. But Ray Stantz has set up right by the firehouse his kind of little shop of the arcane. So he specializes in all sorts of ghost lore and stuff like that. So a couple things kind of happen at once. Walter Peck, the prick inspector from the original Ghostbusters movie that wanted to shut the Ghostbusters down, he comes back in this movie, and he's now the mayor of New York. And after the Ghostbusters bust a ghost and cause some damage and whatnot, he is reaming them out, and he's like, he's talking about Phoebe. He's like, how old is she? She's 15? She got a minor working for you, busting ghosts? He's like, no. So like, Callie's like, okay, we'll put her on the sidelines until she comes of age. And Phoebe, of course, is pissed, right? And like, if that'll appease you, it's a dangerous job busting ghosts. A lot of damage occurs. It's just the way it is. But we'll bench Phoebe until she comes of age, whatever. And also at the same time, this guy named Nadim, I think, his grandmother dies, and he's kind of looting the apartment for stuff he can sell. And he finds this in this strange hidden room, this kind of brass orb thing, kind of like the star map in Ahsoka. And he brings it to Ray's shop and says, like, is this something? And Ray's like, yeah, maybe I could offer you this much for it, blah, blah, blah. And he puts a PKE meter to it, and it like it does this big shockwave thing, and we see the containment unit in the Ghostbusters firehouse like kind of rumble around and shift, and it's apparent there's something about this orb. And so in the meantime, with Phoebe being benched, she gets pissed off. She goes out into the park at night to one of the chess boards in the park and starts playing chess. All of a sudden, the other pieces start moving by themselves. And then this girl about her own age named Melody, who is a ghost, kind of makes herself appear, and the two of them start talking, and they start getting along and whatever, and so Phoebe has this new ghost friend that's kind of giving her something to look forward to now that she can't bust ghosts, right? So that's going on. We got the orb, we got the bustin', and Ray can't figure out what's going on with his orb. So Winston, who now has this ghost research lab or something like that, takes it to there, and he has his experts start looking at it and whatever. And so what ends up happening is they end up kind of cracking this orb. And the problem is it's basically like a ghost trap from a long time ago. And it's been passed down by a group of women called the Fire Walkers or something like that. So inside this orb is actually the spirit, the ghost of a demon called Garaka or something like that, and they accidentally let it loose. So this thing, the reason it was in this brass orb, and Nadim found it in this secret room in his grandma's apartment that was all covered in brass, is because brass is what weakens this ghost. But he gets free, and Phoebe at the same time, with her new ghost friend Melody, she goes to Winston's facility because she can actually separate her spirit from her body, because she wants to actually have some real interactions with this ghost girl Melody. But she finds out that Melody was actually working for Garacus, who promised her that he would be able to pass Melody on to the next realm and get her out of her ghost form. So there's a betrayal to Phoebe by this Melody girl. And of course, Garacus is loose, and he has the ability to lower the ambient temperature and just basically freeze everything. And when he does this, he can freeze people and destroy them and whatever. So the Ghostbusters now have this powerful ass ghost on the loose, and he's trying to bust the containment unit as well and set free all the ghosts so they could have a big problem on their hands. So basically, in the end, the Ghostbusters have to come together and defeat this Garacus and set things to rights, right? So I really liked the movie. I didn't like it quite as much as I thought I was going to. I love all the actors involved. I love that they brought back the original crew, that they were in the firehouse, that Ray had that little shop beside, because when I played that Ghostbusters game on the PS4 that I posted footage of, that little shop that I would go to, I forget, to get some sort of supplies or something, like, it's all based on that, right? Which is really cool. So I really like all that, but my problem with it is that there wasn't enough ghosts in it. That, like, I was expecting like when I was reading up on the movie and the trailers and stuff, it sounded like every ghost they've ever caught is going to be set loose and whatever, and just the big ghosts everywhere scene just never really seemed to come. It was only really Garacus that really played a part. Slimer was there, of course, too, and stuff, but I was expecting more ghosts. Let's just say that was my only problem with the movie, is that I wanted more ghosts, and I wanted more busting. But either way, I really enjoyed the movie, and it's it's helping to further expand the Ghostbusters franchise, and I don't think that's a bad thing, because the original Ghostbusters movie is by far one of the best movies ever made. It's right up there. So yeah, I hope they keep it going and come up with some new and fresh ideas. And if I have any one suggestion for the next Ghostbusters movie, just more ghosts. More ghosts. I felt like the people panned the Ghostbusters movie with the girls, but I fucking loved it. And they had a lot of ghosts in that movie, right? Remember at the end when they were all fucking tromping through the streets? Like, that worked for me. I like that, right? So yeah, it was kind of unfair that movie got panned. I really enjoyed it. I'm not sure. People hold on to things so much, like the original Ghostbusters. It has to be similar to that. It has to be the same. It has to be the same people, blah, blah, blah. It can't be females. Like, it wasn't a remake of the original. It was something different. You know, they were trying something different, and I enjoyed it. But apparently I'm in the minority. So anyways, enough on that. Let's get to the next movie. Fucking love this movie. Renfield. I wanted to see this movie as soon as I saw the trailer, and I asked my buddy Simon about it, and he said, I've seen it. He said, it's hilarious. So it's a Dracula movie, but Dracula is not the main character. Dracula is played by Nicolas Cage, and the main focus is on his assistant, whose last name is Renfield. He, like 90, 100 years ago, whatever it is, showed up at Dracula's castle. He was a real estate guy or something like that, trying to broker some sort of land deal with Dracula, not realizing that he was going to Dracula's house, right? And so Dracula ended up taking a liking to Renfield and ended up making Renfield his familiar. So basically, he gave Renfield a bit of his blood, and now Renfield is granted immortality and superpowers, especially when he eats bugs. That's if he eats bugs, like the eyes go yellow and he's a maniac, right? So Renfield has helped Dracula throughout the years, kind of as Dracula has been attacked by whatever and has to recover. Renfield brings him victims to feed on. He relocates them. He does all the things that Dracula needs to kind of stay stay alive and whatever. So 90 years later, just after Dracula was hunted by some monster hunters and is left in really bad shape, Renfield relocates them to New Orleans in current times. Well, in New Orleans, while Dracula is recuperating, Renfield joins this 12-step program that deals with people that are in abusive, codependent relationships. So, you go and you hear some girl talking about this guy she's moved in with and how he's a prick and whatever. And Renfield doesn't really say much. And you're kind of thinking, like, if only these people knew his codependent relationship was fucking Dracula, right? So there's so many different funny things in this and different levels of funniness, right? So eventually, like, Renfield is trying to bring Dracula victims, but he's starting to have a conscience about just these people being murdered just so Dracula can get better after he goes on a bender and gets killed and whatever. And so he's bringing him like the lowest of the low, right? So he brings him a victim that is a boyfriend of one of the girls in the self-help group. He's like, well, I may as well solve her problem. I'll just fucking get this guy and Drac can eat him, and fuck, now she's better off. And I don't feel guilty about bringing her this guy, right? So he's going to get this guy. This guy is tied up in some sort of drug deal. This guy named Teddy Lobo, who is part of this huge crime family in the city, ends up getting involved. And Renfield ends up decapitating a hitman that Teddy sends in to deal with these drug guys, who is this girl's boyfriend that Renfield's trying to get, right? So there's all these things coming together. And Teddy Lobo is in his car, and he freaks out and takes off after Renfield decapitates his hitman and then throws his head at the guy's car window. And Teddy Lobo takes off in his car and he's, wah! And he ends up running into a ride program where this young police officer named Rebecca Quincy is like, is that Teddy Lobo? Fuck, we can bring him in. We can end this guy, right? And so he's like, fuck a ride program. And then he sees the cops. So he tries to escape. She shoots out his tire. He crashes. He gets on foot with his bag of cocaine. And he's throwing cocaine at them and trying to escape. And eventually they bring him in. But it's quite clear that a lot of the cops are on the take with the Lobo family. Because she's like, we got enough thing on this guy. We can put him away. But everybody's like, and they let him go, sort of thing, right? So she knows she's up against some shit with her own department. So the next thing we kind of see is Renfield going to this bar / restaurant, which is really cool, almost like a Halloween vibe to it. And Renfield, after Dracula, after Renfield brought him this girl's boyfriend to feed on, he's like, oh, this is shit. This guy tastes like crap. Blah, blah, blah. You need to bring me something pure. Like a bunch of nuns, a school bus full of cheerleaders, right? So Renfield's sitting in this bar, and he's like, he orders his drink, and he's kind of looking around, and he looks over, and there's a table of 4 nuns, and he's like, oh, for fuck's sake, right? And then as he's looking at the nuns, in the bar window, you see the school bus fly by with all these cheerleaders hanging out the window, bah! And he's like, oh, for Christ, right? So, which is really funny. But then, as he is sitting there, Rebecca, the cop, shows up, and so does Teddy Lobo, who's got his thugs. They're going to go after this cop for kind of embarrassing him and whatnot, right? But Renfield eats one of his bugs after seeing everything that's unfolding and helps Rebecca deal with Teddy and his goons, right? And afterwards, she's like, thanks, man. Like, you're a real hero. Like, nobody would ever do that, right? Like, so Renfield and Rebecca start forming this kind of bond, and she, like, he was already trying to help himself in this 12-step program to try and separate himself from Dracula, just didn't really know how to do it. But this friendship with Rebecca that's coming about makes him want to do that even more. Like having this positive encouragement from her is kind of that extra push he needs, right? So he moves out, he gets his own apartment, whatever. But eventually Dracula gets wind of this, and of course pays Renfield a visit, and he's like, you abandoned me, man, right? And you can't fight Dracula, right? So Dracula ends up going to Renfield's 12-step program, the gym or the church, wherever they hold it, slaughters the whole group of them and stuff, and Renfield is mortified. So the rest of the movie is basically, and Renfield ends up getting caught there, and they think he did it, but Rebecca's like, I don't know, whatever. So eventually the truth all comes out about Dracula, whatever. And so Renfield and Rebecca have to find a way to fight back against Dracula, against the Lobo crime family, and then, of course, against her own police department, who are on the take from the Lobo crime family. So it's two against a whole bunch of fucking people, one of them being Dracula, right? So, excellent movie. Such a different idea for a Dracula movie, and just so funny. And Nicolas Cage is amazing as Dracula. He's so funny. Nicolas Cage is one of those guys for some reason that people either love him or they fucking hate his guts. And I've never quite understood it, because everything Nicolas Cage has ever done that I've watched, I love it. Like, I just think he's a great actor. Even Ghost Rider. Yes, even Ghost Rider. I enjoyed Ghost Rider. Fucking sue me, right? So, yeah, if you don't like Nicolas Cage, you're probably not going to like this movie. Although he's not the main character, you might be able to get around it. Plus, he's always dressed up like Dracula, so you can't even really... You can tell it's him, but he looks like Dracula. So, yeah, but I love Nick Cage. If you don't, I don't care. You should learn to love Nick Cage, because he's fantastic. Anyways, enough about Renfield and Nick Cage. Let's get on to the last item on this list. And it is a video game that I downloaded on the Nintendo Switch. Nintendo sent me an email a short while back saying, games you would really like. And I was like, yeah, you're probably right. And this one's on sale for $11. Download, right? So, and the game in question is called Final Vendetta. So Final Vendetta is a side-scrolling beat-em-up street fighting game. Think in the vein of like Streets of Rage, Double Dragon, Bad Dudes, that style of game. And obviously it's a newer game. And the story behind it is that the main character is named Claire Sparks. She gets a phone call one day. Your sister has been kidnapped. And she's like, those Syndicate pricks. And I think this takes place in London, England. So there's some sort of organization called Syndicate that are, I don't know if they're a crime organization or whatever, but Claire Sparks obviously has a history with them, and they're trying to get at her, and to do so, they kidnap her sister. So Claire enlists the aid of her two buddies, Miller and Duke, and they hit the streets to take the fight to Syndicate and rescue her sister. So in the game, there's 6 stages. There's actually 7, but one of them is like, is it Street Fighter? I think it's Street Fighter. You get those little stages every once in a while where there's a car sitting there and you beat the shit out of it for some reason. It has one of those stages, but I don't really consider that a stage. So there's actually 6 actual real stages. And you start on the streets of London, and then you go, where do you go? You go to the subway, I think, and then to an elevator, and then, can't remember where the game ends up, but some sort of manor where the Syndicate boss is, sort of thing. So you make your way through London, these 6 different stages, and in order to get your sister back. In the game, when I think Streets of Rage and Double Dragon and Bad Dudes, in those games, like, the characters are smaller on the screen. This is one of those rare side-scrolling beat-em-ups where the characters are really tall. The characters are really big, which is such a different kind of perspective, and I enjoy playing one of those every once in a while because they're kind of rare. So I thought that was a pretty cool feature, and it's basically similar to the other types of games in that vein. You just make your way through the level. There's all sorts of different kind of enemies. There's like the beefy guys, there's the quick guys with knives, there's the women with whips that are fast. There's the different styles of enemies that you have to adjust to. And then, of course, at the end of every stage, there's a boss. And as you go through, there's like crates and barrels and whatnot that you can break that will have food items, like a turkey fills you up in full, a soda pop fills you up just a tiny bit. There's all these different food items that replenishes your energy. And then, of course, there's also lots of weapons. There's like knives, steel pipes, the cricket bat, that one's fun to use. and that you can pick up and dispatch your enemies, quicker than with regular attacks. Your attacks you don't have a ton of attacks. You have like you can jump kick, you can kick, punch, and grab, and then knee people and throw them or whatever. And then you have a special attack that's unique to each character. You can choose to play with any of those three characters, and if you have a friend playing, you can obviously play with two of them at the same time. Yeah, and so it's a very similar formula that if you played these types of games before, you know what I'm talking about. And it's quick to play through. The first time I tried it on the hardest level, I got my ass handed to me. But the more I played it, the more I got used to the enemy's tendencies and how to use weapons most effectively and whatever. I was able to really improve and make it through the game fairly easily. I still haven't beaten it on hard. I'm not trying that. I went back to the easier two levels. But the game's lots of fun. It's short, but it's sweet. And for the price tag, it's hard to beat. I just did a fucking rhyme. And in the as you beat the game on the different difficulty levels. I think when I beat it on the easiest level, I unlocked you play in arcade mode to play through the story. Then there's a survival mode that you unlock by beating it on easy, which you're just given waves of enemies, and you just see how long you can last and how many you can destroy in that time. And then when you beat it on the medium level, you unlock a boss rush mode where you just face all the different bosses of the game all in a row and try to survive, sort of thing. So there's a couple of different modes that they're not going to keep you going on the game for that long, but it's something to try and something to partake in after you're done the main game. So like I said, short, sweet, lots of fun, controls great. Everything about the game was very well executed. And like I said, when it's only $11, I'll buy games like that all fucking day long. So that is it. Those are the 5 things I got up to recently. I've already got some other things started, but I think I'm going to be a little longer between reviews from this one to the next one than I was from this one to the one that came before it. But you have my guarantee, as always, that I'm going to be reading, watching, playing my ass off, because that's just what I do. Bye. Meow.